All right, so ways that we can be memorable besides choosing this awesome brand new intellectually stimulating topic, a way to keep our audience is engaged is that you have to have visual aids or presentational aids. This is going to help your audience tie concepts to memory, and it's going to help us retain the information a little bit more. So what do I mean when I say that you need a visual aid? So for this particular assignment, you need to have at least 3 visual aids, and how those visual aids need to be presented to your audience is either a tangible object if you're in the classroom, or if you're in the classroom too, presentational software like PowerPoint is a good tool to use. So when you are presenting your presentational aids, they can either be models, pictures, drawings, charts, graphs, maps. Those are all great. You definitely want to make sure that those are presented on a PowerPoint so that we are putting it on the screen in the classroom. So you're going to want to save that. You're going to want to email it to yourself or put it on a flash drive. Prepare for technology to fail you, so always have a backup plan with how you're going to be bringing it to the classroom. If you want to play audio, you can, but no longer than 30 seconds. Same with showing a video, no longer than 30 seconds, because I don't want it taken away from your speaking time. We're here to listen to you and not to videos that you would be playing. So be mindful of how long your videos are. We don't want to use handouts for our visual aids because handouts for visual aids in an informative setting is going to be distracting. We want to be getting the information from you instead of looking and rattling a piece of paper around at our desk. So make sure that you are either showing us a tangible object of some sort or that you're presenting that on the screen in the classroom. So handouts, I just want to touch on this real quick. Handouts are useful, but not for informative. They would be more useful for a persuasive speech if in a persuasive speech you have a solution. Because when we get to the persuasive unit and you have a solution to make that attitude change, behavioral change, you want to have your audience be able to walk away with that information to be part of the change. And we can't do that unless we can leave the classroom with it in some way. So a handout is a great tool for a visual aid, but just not for an informative speech. All right. So the visual aid must help your audience better understand a concept. So comedy and memes and GIFs are a great way to be memorable for entertainment purposes. And I think entertainment and humor in any speech, as long as it's appropriate, is a great way to be memorable. But if you want to use memes or GIFs as part of your visual aids, they need to be in addition to actual visual aids that are going to help your audience better understand a concept. So just keep that in mind, because I do have students who like to add in elements of humor, but then they forget that the visual aid or the purpose of the visual aid is still to help the audience better understand what it is they're talking about, not necessarily just be the punchline of the speech. Totally up to you though. Also, when you are presenting your visual aid, you need to use something called the sandwich method, and you'll see the video that I ask you to watch that's embedded in the modules. It talks about this particular method. I don't believe they label it the sandwich method, but the sandwich method is just sandwiching slides that have content on them in between blank slides. And what that does is that it takes away distraction from your audience watching the slides to your focus on you as the speaker. So when you're talking or when you start your information, when you're not using your visual aid, there should be a blank screen behind you. And when you're ready to verbally discuss the content as it ties to your visual aid, then bring up the visual aid. Explain what it is that we're seeing, teach us, and then once you're done, get rid of it. So you're just sandwiching, again, your information in between blank slides. Okay, so for this particular assignment, again, you need 3 visual aids. Visual aids are a great way to be memorable. They're a great way to add in humor. They're a great way to keep your audience engaged. All right. Your visual aids also do not count as part of your 5 oral citations or 5 sources that you need within your speech. They are in addition to. Do you need to orally cite your visual aids? No, not necessarily, because, on your visual aids, you'll see, I don't know if my screen is large enough. Let me see if I can take it down. I might not be able to. You'll notice, you won't be able to see it though, at the bottom of these slides, you should have the source information and the date. Okay, or at the end of your presentation, give your works cited for for your visual aid. So it doesn't seem like you're plagiarizing that information. You need to give credit where credit is due, but you don't necessarily need to orally cite these visual aids as your sources. Okay, they're in addition to your 5 oral citations. All right, so another way to be memorable is how you choose to deliver your speech in terms of your verbal content. So words can be really powerful. Words can make a huge impact on your audience, even in informative. This goes for persuasive, but this is definitely true still for informative. So how can words be memorable? You want to use specific concrete words. So specific concrete words are going to tie and appeal to the senses. So basically you want to be really descriptive. I want to be able to listen to you and have a picture painted in my head with your words. So use words that tie or appeal to my senses. Use symbol words. Make sure you're not talking over my head. You want to adapt your words to or adapt your vocab to the level of your listener. You don't want to dumb it down too much that we feel offended and we start criticizing, but you don't want to talk over our head. Also what that has to do with, and I'll hop down to the bottom here, is making sure that you have no jargon. Jargon is only understood by a select group of people. So you don't want to use words that we're not going to understand. You don't want to use slang, and you want to make sure that you're not swearing, obviously, because that takes away from your credibility. Okay, there's a time and a place, and it's not while you're being graded. Understand denotation and connotation. So denotation, this is important for understanding rhetoric. Denotation is the dictionary definition of the word. And then connotation is the emotion tied to that word. And that's going to be different for everybody. The connotative meaning to a word is going to be different for everybody. And it's just important to realize those things when you are talking to a select group of people. It's about knowing your audience. So let's say that I was talking to, well, it could be anybody, but let's say I was talking to women at a shelter that are there as domestic violence survivors. So if I'm saying the word home often in my speech that I'm talking about, the denotative definition of the word home is a residence, a place where one lives. But the connotative meaning to the word home is different for everybody. In that select group of people, the connotative meaning of the word home might be abuse, addiction, anger, violence. Okay? So that word is going to have a lot of emotion, a lot of negative emotion tied to the word with that particular audience. If I was talking to kindergartners, not all of them, but if I was talking to kindergartners and I kept using the word home, they might think mom and dad, love, laughter, memories. For me, when I think of the word home, I think of how I have to pick up my kitchen when I get home, how I have to empty the dishwasher. But I also have, positive memories tied to it. My kids are at home, love, laughter, security, things like that. That's the connotative meaning. It's different for everybody, but it's the emotional tie to the word. Another way that you can be effective with words is repetition. A lot of famous speeches from history are impactful and memorable because of repetition. I Have a Dream speech, Obama's the I Can speech, Ronald Reagan, a lot of repetition in those made it very memorable and very effective. All right, the next concept I want you to think about in order to be memorable is stepping away from verbals and thinking about nonverbals and how we can use our nonverbals, our gestures, our body, our stance, our use of space in the room to be memorable. And what I want you to add in, if able-bodied, are nonverbal transitions. So nonverbal transitions, you're going to act like a tour guide physically to help your audience move along with you and stay organized. So what that means is, let's say that I'm giving my speech in the classroom and I start my speech in the middle of the classroom. So my introduction, attention getter, thesis, credibility, preview statement is in the middle. Once I'm done with the 4 parts of my introduction, I'm going to choose to either go left or right, and I'm going to transition my way over there. So my introduction, my attention getter, my thesis, my credibility, my preview, I'm going to walk and talk and transition to the right side of the room. Okay. Once I'm at the right side of the room, I'm going to signpost, I'm going to introduce my topics, I'm going to preview my subpoints, I'm going to go into my subpoints, I'm going to transition, I'm going to talk my way through there. And then once I'm done talking about my first point, I'm going to use that verbal bridge that I've been asking you guys to add in. So now that you understand what main point 1 is about by looking at A and B, next I want to go over and I want to talk about the second point, which is this. So I'm going to use that bridge, that verbal bridge, remind your audience of where you were to where you're going, and I'm going to walk to the left side of the room. Once I'm done talking about my second point, let's say my speech only has 2 points, I'm going to come back to where I started my speech, and I'm going to use that spot to conclude. Okay, so think about what are called walking transitions. And the reason we want to use walking transitions or think more about our nonverbals is because our nonverbals can make an impact if done correctly. And if you stand in one spot, like I'm sitting in one spot for this video lecture, it gets a little boring, right? Which is why I miss teaching in the classroom, but I understand the importance of online learning and having this. But it limits what I can do as a speaker. But since you will be in a space that you can use for a public forum, take advantage of the use of space and use walking transitions. Your audience is going to be much more entertained, and we're going to listen more to you if you keep us engaged. And part of that is through movement. So think of walking transitions. Okay. All right, so the next part of the lecture series, it's going to be video number 3 that we're going to do, is basically going over what type of speeches you can do, what are the organizational patterns, and we're going to take a closer look at the assignment. So stay tuned for the next video.